Hello, everyone, and welcome inside Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Michael. We are, as always, brought to you by WinBet and B-Marsh. It feels like we need new intro music, right? It's the hard-hitting stuff. It feels like we need the Twilight Zone music, because that's what I feel like we are living in after another Broncos loss on the road in Pittsburgh. So much to dive into from yesterday. I mean, there's a million things that we could start with, including slow start, the penalties. Let's get into it. Let's start as we do every show. What's on Marshall's mind today? Brought to you by Delta Dental. B-Marsh, give it to me.
Mike, man, there's no way that this Broncos team could be what they want to be by being dead last in the NFL on third down conversion percentage. It's so crazy. I can't believe that the last 28% on third down, the 2 for 12 yesterday, you know, they're not extending the drives. The defense is tired. Coming back on the field every time it's a third down. I know the guys, every time they hear on the sideline, punt team alert, I'm sure them guys are like, oh, here we go again. You know, they're not going to convert the third down. So that's tough, man. We got to figure out a more efficient way. We got to figure out a way to convert these third downs as bad.
Yeah, it continues to be a problem, right? It's not this first game where this has been an issue. You go back, the start of the year, that Giants game, they were pretty good. And then all of a sudden, since then, I mean, they have been dropping in terms of third down percentage and dropping at a really drastic rate. And B-Marsh, I think in looking at this, like, the thing that stands out to me is they're playing behind the sticks from the get-go. You come out first play of the game, the first offensive play of the game, and you get a delay of game. I have never seen that. How does that even happen? So then all of a sudden you're in 1st and 15 to start the game, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I don't even know, because first of all, offenses, you know, or offensive coordinators, they script the first 15 plays.
Yes.
First 15. So, you know, before the game on Friday night, we work on it. Saturday, actually, they have it. We do a walkthrough. They say, okay, cool. This is going to be the first play of the game. All right. And we're going to run it on whatever call. So how you have a delayed game on the first play of the game, that is beyond me. It blows my mind. I don't know. It looks like the offense is unorganized. It looks like it may need some different leadership. Not talking about Teddy Bridgewater, by the way, because, you know, he looked okay at the end of the game, you know, but it just looked bad. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point in terms of the leadership and where this team is. I think there's a problem at offensive coordinator, and this is not the first time that we have brought that up. This is not the first time that I have felt that way, but it feels like this offense is just so stagnant. It is so boring. And Brandon, I think what's so disheartening is when you look across the league at the other teams and the good teams and what they're doing and how explosive they are and how creative they are, and then you don't see that at all from this Broncos team, and they continue to do the same dumb stuff is kind of what it feels like. And I don't think that Teddy's the problem. I look at yesterday's game, and I think the coaching had as much to do with that as anything. And that's what's really frustrating, is not only are you not able to convert on third down, but you're making stupid mistakes, and you're not giving yourself an opportunity to win the football game. And that, to me, is what's most frustrating when I look at this Broncos team. And I do think that there are some major issues, and I think it starts with the coaching.
Yeah, I think, you know, as far as when you say coaching, I think that's why the league is trending more towards younger coaches. Mm-hmm. The Cliff Kingsbury, the Sean McVays, the Brandon Staley's, those guys are younger and they're more progressive. You know, they're not so stuck in their ways, and they're forward thinking and they're creative. And that's why it's exciting to watch the Rams and the Cardinals and the Chargers. They got these young coaches. They're innovative. They're exciting. You know, I mean, the only probably old coach that I feel like is innovative and exciting still. I mean, you got Andy Reid, who does his thing offensively. You know, Josh McDaniels, he does his thing offensively. But that's why they're trending towards younger coaches, man. And I feel like, I'm not sure how old Pat is, but it seems like, you know, I'm not sure if it's because he doesn't have a lot of his weapons, but I still think you have to keep the playbook open if you have a veteran quarterback like Teddy. Teddy, regardless of who's that receiver, you still keep the playbook open, run whatever you need to run, instead of trying to, you know, close it down and condense it down. And so, because I'm not really sure if because Teddy was on concussion protocol or what, but the playbook needs to be wide open. And if that's his playbook, then that's a problem.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think what stood out to me, okay, yeah, sure, you're without Jerry Jeudy and you're without KJ Hamler.
Yeah.
But like last week, you could say they were without more weapons because they were without their two starting guards. Okay. And you can't use that as an excuse anymore because everybody else is down players too, right? It's week 5 in the NFL. Everybody is down guys and down playmakers. And you still don't see the opportunity is given to the Broncos and their players from a play calling perspective. How does Noah Fant not have a target the entire first half? That's your first round pick from just a couple years ago, and you're not even looking his way. Like, and if okay, if you're Pat Shermer, you're probably gonna say, well, you know, whatever, we gave him opportunities, or tell Teddy, hey, look for Noah on this. You know, like, you have playmakers on the field. You're not even trying to get them the ball. It's inexcusable to me that Noah Fant isn't targeted more in this offense at that tight end spot. It's inexcusable to me that they're not getting creative and not trying to open things up. And they never look, it's either dink and dunk or bomb down the field. They never look in that like 8 to 10 to 12 yard range. And I don't know if that's on Teddy. I don't know if it's on Pat, but it starts with Pat and it goes down. And they need to figure out why they are unable to, one, play ahead of the sticks, and two, make something happen offensively. Brandon, at halftime, it was 17-6.
Yeah.
And it felt like the Broncos offense was done for.
Right.
You know, and we felt that before. I had no faith that they were going to come back. Now, they did late in the game, but I think a lot of that, I always think some of that is due to Pittsburgh and playing off. But it feels like this Broncos offense is just spinning its wheels yet again. And I think what's so frustrating for Broncos fans is that it feels like they've been here for the last 5 years.
Yeah, no, and they have. And, you know, it sucks that they've lost some playmakers because, you know, this offense needs every playmaker that they can get, right? Yeah. I'm not sure if there's somebody on the street, a free agent, somebody needs to sign off a practice squad, whatever the case may be, but we got to get playmakers because without them, I mean, this offense will be probably bottom half of the league, if not bottom 5%.
And it feels like they're just okay being below average. You know what I mean? Like, they had a 3rd and 17, a 3rd and goal from the 17. Okay. And Brandon McManus can hit from there. Period. End of story. They don't try and go deep, try and pick up a PI. They just dink it off to Javonte Williams and have him pick up a couple yards. That doesn't do anything. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, are you really expecting Javonte Williams to break that? I don't think so. I think that's Pat Shermer saying, forget it, we'll settle for the field goal. Well, if you're going to settle from the field goal from the 11 or whatever it was, why wouldn't you just settle from the 17 and try and throw it deep and try and get a PI? That's what the Steelers did on a 3rd and 15. They get the PI, which was a questionable call, in my opinion, on Kyle Fuller, and then they end up scoring a touchdown.
Yeah, no, well, now, granted, you know, I'm not really sure what the coverage was. They could have blanketed it. If it was the blanket coverage, then Teddy didn't want a chance of interception or whatever. So that's kind of sticky right there, Mike, because, you know, it's really like, okay, well, yes, I want to take a shot, but I also don't want to turn the ball over. We need
right. No, good point.
So I'm sure it was a play call that was conducive to getting them in the end zone. But, you know, if the Steelers blanketed the coverage, man, then there was really nothing that Teddy could do, you know. But like you said, at the same time, it's still, the offense is still not creative. It's boring. It's not innovative. It's like real basic. It looks like anybody can stop it. You know, I could probably come up with a scheme to stop this offense.
Well, you are a coach now.
Yeah, I am. I am a linebackers coach, but, you know, the way it seems, I'm like, yo, it don't seem like it's too hard, to be honest with you.
And I think that's what's so frustrating is, again, it feels like everybody around the league, especially in your division, in the Chiefs and the Chargers and the Raiders to and is getting more creative and getting more progressive, and yet it feels like the Broncos are not. And they've spent a lot of capital in the draft to try and get guys who can help you be explosive and be creative. And you can't let the fact that you have 2 wide receivers out completely ruin what you're trying to do offensively.
You can't. Somebody got to step up. You still got Cortland. You still got Tim Patrick, right? You know, Kendall Hinton looked good yesterday. So hopefully some guys will step up. You know, like I said, if they got to sign on the street, which I don't know if there's anybody out there. You know, who's out there? Dez Bryant, but that ain't gonna help. So I mean, I feel like they it's something they need to do, man. And I don't know what it is. But hopefully they'll get it fixed.
Well, and you talk about speed guys. Okay, well, you still have Deontay Spencer, and I know he's not maybe the most sure-handed receiver, but you can still use him to try and maybe do some creative things. David Moore, who they signed, they tried to get him involved a little bit yesterday. You can still use him to try and do some creative things, which is going to open up things for Cortland and for Tim Patrick a little bit, and maybe even for Noah Fant. But I just don't feel like this offense is where it needs to be, and that's frustrating, especially after what you saw in the first 3 games. And Brandon, I'm wondering now, will the real Broncos please stand up, right? Are they the team that started 3-0 and that blanked the Jets 26-0, or are they the team that's lost 2 straight games? And I'm starting to feel like they are the team that has lost 2 straight games more than they are the team that went 3-0 against teams that have combined for just 2 wins through the first 5 weeks of the NFL season.
Yeah, I seen. I was on Instagram one day, maybe it was a few days ago, and it said I was following either NFL or like ESPN, and it said pretenders or contenders, and it was talking about 4 teams, whether there was a contender or a pretender, and the Broncos was on there. And they put pretender. I actually agree with them. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yeah, this team is, I don't think they're contenders at all. I definitely think they're, pretender. I think that 3-1 record was kind of like, they got some luck from the schedule makers.
Yeah.
That was some luck because, if not, they wouldn't have started 3-0 at all. Also, the injuries have hurt them as well. But, I don't see them as a contending team. And right now they're sitting, second in the AFC West, but they could easily be last.
Well, and that's what's crazy, right? Is they still control their own destiny because given the way that everybody else in the AFC West has played, they're still a shot. But that being said, I have no faith that they will control their own destiny and that they will do the things necessary to win games. Because when I look at the rest of the schedule, you got a massive game coming up against the Raiders, right? It's a massive game for the Broncos. It's also a massive game for the Raiders because they're in the same boat, starting 3-0 and having lost 2 straight. Then you go on the road on a short week to Cleveland. You could be looking at a 4-game losing streak if you don't win that Raiders game coming up on Sunday.
And if that happens, the team morale will go down.
Yeah,
I trust you. Now, at the end of the day, we're professionals. We're grown men. We have pride in who we are and how we play. But at the same time, that 4-game losing streak is almost like that monkey is right back on your back. You feel like you got it off when you're 3-0. Okay, cool. We haven't made the playoffs since the Super Bowl year.
Yeah.
We're finally about to get the monkey off our back. We won our first game in September in a while. But now that monkey's just jumping right on your back again. So you just gotta throw it off. Guys, it's so tough because you want to say it's all on the players, but it's not always all on the players. A lot of times it starts from the top down. And this defense, I feel like it didn't look. Everybody doesn't actually have great games every game, but the defense didn't look that good yesterday either. To be honest with you. And so, as a team, I feel like these guys got to regroup, maybe call a players meeting and get this set straight for Sunday because the Raiders are coming in town and they have to win this game.
So if you're calling a players meeting and you're in that Broncos leadership, right? And we kind of heard this from Teddy after the game and Justin Simmons after the game too. Teddy was like, we got to get together with the leadership council and try and keep everything positive, try and keep everybody motivated because guys will get in their phones. And, Teddy used the cliche phrase, it's never as bad as you think it is, and it's never as good as you think it is either. But what is your message as a former player to those guys? If you're back in that locker room, what's your message this week as you get set to play a game that feels like could make or break your season?
I'm telling the guys, we got to do more. If you're coming in and you're practicing and you feel like you're giving 95%, give 100, right? If you're coming in at 7, come in at 6:30. If you're leaving at whatever, stay a little longer. I feel like we got to do a little more. You got to give that extra mile, man, because this team isn't, I want to say, ultra talented, right? They don't have great schemers besides on defense. I think Big Fangio's a good scheme guy, but I think they have to do more, man. I think they got to sacrifice more free time, sacrifice whatever they can because they have to get this down, man. And they have an opportunity here. Like you said, they still control their own destiny. They have the first division game coming up. And this is a huge game. So I would just encourage the guys to do more. Whatever you're giving, give more. And if you feel like you can't give any more, go further, find that extra gear. You know what I'm saying? Go to the extra mile because, the season's not lost yet, but they're on a downward spiral. They got to pick themselves back up.
It's got to start this week too, because if they drop 3 straight and then you go to Cleveland on a Thursday night, man, I don't see how you're winning that game right now, given the way that they are playing. When we come back, the offense wasn't the only one that had some woes yesterday. We will talk about what was supposed to be the bright spot of this Denver Broncos football team and failed them yet again yesterday. We'll talk about that Broncos defense and what went wrong and which player in particular the Steelers treated like a rookie yesterday. We'll talk more about that coming up right here on Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Michael, presented by WinBet. Welcome back inside Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Michael, presented by WinBet. Glad to have you with us here on CBS in Denver as we continue to recap what was a really disappointing loss for the Denver Broncos yesterday in Pittsburgh. And Brandon, I was disappointed by this Broncos defense, right? And we've talked all along about how we thought they could come in and be one of the top defenses in the league, if not the top defense in the NFL. And what stood out to me yesterday was Pittsburgh's ability to run the football. The Steelers came in as the worst rushing team in the NFL, averaging just 55 yards per game. And then they go off and put up 147 yards yesterday on this Broncos defense. And it wasn't like they came late in the game, right? I mean, Najee Harris was ready to go from the get-go. We knew that this Broncos defense, if they were going to be exposed, it would start with the run defense because we felt like the secondary was going to be the strong part. But I didn't know that they were going to get exposed like this in the way that they did yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see it either. And I mean, I guess if you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers' last couple of games, they tried to win it on Ben's back, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like they've been doing for decades. They tried to win it on Ben's back. They're seeing that he's not necessarily the same type of player that can take and control the game like a Patrick Mahomes as far as just with his arm. So they had to get the ground game going. And the fact that they got it going against the Broncos is wild to me because they're a predominantly shotgun team. And Najee Harris ran for what 122? Yeah. I'm shocked. I'm like, there's no way that should have happened. The Broncos, even though I guess if you had to pick a weak spot on the defense, it would be the front seven. But they still have a really good front, though. So for him to run for over 100 yards and not to have a 100-yard season, 100-yard game at all this season, it's wild to me, and it's kind of disappointing, actually.
And it was 122 yards at an average of more than 5 yards a clip. Yeah. You know what I mean? So he was getting big chunk yards on that defense. And I look at the Broncos numbers, and they were a bit misleading because Javonte Williams had that 49-yard rush. That's not the case with the Steelers. I mean, they ran the ball, and they ran the ball effectively every single time that they did it. And I think what concerns me here, too, is now the blueprint's out, right? Yeah. Because now the Steelers have proven that you can run the ball against this Broncos defense. And if I'm the opposing teams coming up here, whether it's the Raiders, whether it's the Chiefs, whether it's the Browns, the Cowboys, my goodness, if Najee Harris is running for 122, how much is Zeke going to go for? When the Broncos have to travel to Dallas later in the season, that I think is concerning heading into the rest of this season. And Brandon, it's not like the secondary played incredibly well. And you made the point last week, hey, we got to stop calling these guys the no-fly zone. And not only was it like, they specifically targeted Kyle Fuller yesterday, which was crazy to me because you're talking about a guy who was a first-team All-Pro back in 2018. Yeah. Big Ben looked at Kyle Fuller and said, wherever he is, I'm going to throw the ball to whoever is on him. That, to me, was astounding. And Kyle Fuller obviously have a great game yesterday. But the way that they looked at him and said, that's the weakness, I'm going to expose that, was alarming.
Yeah, I mean, so my defensive coach in college used to tell us that we need to find the fish on offense, right? And the fish might be a guard, it might be a tackle, it might be the running back as the fish, or even on the other side, like, okay, the fish is this slot corner or whatever. And the fish is somebody you just expose. You know, that's the weak part, like you say, is the weak part defense, and we're going to expose him on this particular day. Kyle Fuller was the fish yesterday, and they exposed it. They figured it out early, and they went to it often. And I can't believe it. I mean, look, we all have off days, but for Kyle Fuller to be a vet of his caliber and to be struggling all day like he did, it sucks. I mean, look, he's human. I'm gonna give him a pass because as a former player, I understand. but it was bad. It was
Yeah,
bad.
I mean, and like I would expect that out of Pat Surtain, and obviously he's a high draft pick and a really good player. But if I were looking at this Broncos secondary and saying, who do I want to target? Who do I want to make the fish? Right?
Yeah.
I would expect it to be Pat Surtain, not a guy in Kyle Fuller who's in his 7th year.
Not Kyle, not at all. And let's talk about Ronald Darby, man. Like his impact it might be greater than we anticipated because he left the Washington football team. Washington football team had a top 5 defense last year, and they're struggling. Mm-hmm. It's bad. I mean, they still have the same D line, but they let Darby walk. I think somebody else, and they're struggling. So, man, look, this team needs to get Darby back fast. You know, I don't know what happened yesterday with Fuller. I expect him to clean it up because he's a pro's pro, I'm sure, but it was ugly.
And you know what's crazy is I remember people in Washington when Darby left, they were like, the Broncos paid him how much? Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, I think there were some people that were like, okay, 3 years, 30 million, $10 million a year. That's maybe a little bit much. He's worth every penny.
now they want him back. They're like, yo.
He hasn't even been on the field and he's worth every penny.
Because, hey, I know I talk about fantasy and I'm going to continue to talk about my fantasy team. I had to drop Washington because I'm like, yo, they're giving up. They're getting torched on defense. Mm-hmm. They're getting torched this year. And I've seen some articles they've written talking about Del Rio trying to clean everything up. But I don't know how you go from top 5 one year to just almost one of the last defenses in the NFL next year.
How's the fantasy team doing, by the way?
You know what? I got 4 leagues. This is the first time I've been in 4
leagues. Good grief.
It's too much. It's a lot. On one of my leagues, I lost 2 games in a row. So I think I'm 2-2. Or 3-2 or 2-3. Actually, I'm 2-3 in that one. But I got one league I'm 4-1 in. Another league I'm 3-2. In another league I'm like 3-2. But I got a league that I'm for sure going to the championship in.
All right. Is that a comment on you or a comment on everybody else in the league?
Well, it's only 8 people in the league, so you was able to draft multiple great players. So the more players you got, the more people playing, it's slim picking. So this one had 8 teams, so I was able to get a crazy bench.
All right. So basically, you're telling me that it's on everybody else because they didn't get the crazy bench. So I love how, like, in one of your leagues, you're the Broncos, and the other, you're the Cardinals. Like,
yeah, I got the Broncos defense in my league with my boys from college, man, and last week they did well. I mean, no, last week they didn't do well either. Actually, it was one of them weeks they had.
Well, against the Jets, they pitched a shutout.
That's what it is. Yeah. That's the week that I won.
Yeah. You should have traded him after that. It's some value. The other thing that stood out to me, Brandon, about this game was like the Broncos couldn't take advantage of opportunities, right? And I think defensively, obviously, you have a 3rd and 15, the penalty on Kyle Fuller. Offensively, you get into the red zone on the Javonte Williams run. It's 1st and goal from the 2. You get the penalty, 1st and goal from the 7. Can't take advantage. The defense forces a turnover on Pittsburgh's 2nd drive. You got the ball inside the 30. And you have to settle for a field goal. Like they weren't able to take advantage. And when we talk about shooting themselves in the foot, that was another issue. In addition to the penalties, the one on Draymond Jones obviously stands out. But that was another issue for this team as a whole. And I think good teams take advantage of situations like that. And the Broncos weren't able to do that yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, missed opportunities, right? I mean, they had a couple of opportunities to maybe change the tone of the game, and they couldn't capitalize, and that's the mark of a bad team. That's the mark of a team that will be home in January.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
The good teams, they take advantage of it. You give the Kansas City Chiefs opportunity, they're going to score. Mm-hmm. They're going to score. So, and that's a team that you're consistently seeing in late January. You know what I'm saying? Consistently, they're in late January. They're in the play for the Super Bowl. So, until the Broncos clean that up and don't shoot themselves in the foot and actually capitalize on these opportunities that when it comes to a short field or a turnover or anything that happens, it's just going to be, they're going to be a 500 team, and it's going to be like, okay, who we drafted? What quarterback are we drafting?
Yeah, that conversation is going to continue. Let's get into our report card. B-Marsh, give me who you got. Professor Marshall, put on that grading cap, bust out the clipboard, and who you giving out a grade to today?
Yeah, I'm a Wolfpack alumni, Nevada Wolfpack, not NC State. And so, I'm going to show love to my guy, man, who who's really a hard-nosed guy. He's a worker, man. He's doing well for himself in the league, Malik Reed. The guy is showing improvement, right? He came in as an undrafted guy, and the Broncos found a gem. And he's a guy who just brings his lunch pail to work, man. He brings his hard hat. I've talked to him his senior year before he left, for the draft, and I saw him like, yo, this guy has it together mentally. He seems really mature, and it's proven it on the field, right? Because they trust him, and he's getting the job done, man. So hats out to Malik Reed, man. I'm gonna give him a B. I'm gonna stay away from the A's yet, but I'm gonna give him a B, man. I gotta show love, but I gotta temper the, the love. I can't give him too much, but I give him a B.
He's getting close. Must be something about those Nevada guys. You know what I mean? Bring their lunch pail, hard workers, underrated, yet they come to make plays. Malik obviously had the strip sack yesterday on Ben. I like that grade for a B, and I think that he can continue to make big plays for this team, and they're going to need him to continue to make big plays as long as Bradley Chubb is out. And even when Bradley Chubb comes back, I think that Malik Reed is going to find himself in a position to make plays for this team moving forward. I'm going to hand out a grade, and I'm going to go with an F to the coaching staff. I don't think that they put this team in a position to win a game. They did not do enough to help this Broncos team win a game yesterday. The slow starts, the penalties, the self-inflicted wounds. I think that is coaching. And, when Vic Fangio first got here, he was talking about death by inches and how you can't have death by inches. They're having death by yards, right? Yeah. Death by penalty flags. I mean, it is death by absolute gashes right now. So I'm going to give the Broncos coaching staff an F. They didn't do enough to help this team yesterday. And I think that they are going to need to do better, specifically the coaching staff, if they want to turn this thing around.
My question to you is, Mike, had they done enough at all this season? Or were the Broncos just that much better than the first three opponents? Did they out-scheme? Do you feel like they out-schemed any other team, or they just feel like we were just that better, we impose our will on these teams?
I felt like they made life hard for Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, maybe more so than other teams have done, because those guys have had decent games against other teams. But I do think that was also a product of those guys not being in the top echelon of quarterbacks in the NFL. And when you get to see better quarterbacks like Big Ben, like Lamar Jackson, like Derek Carr, who you're going to see this week, then they've got to do more in that coaching staff. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think they did a good job scheming for guys who weren't prepared. And now I think they're getting exposed a little bit.
Yeah, I think at the end of this year, I know it's only the fifth game in, but I've seen enough. I think they, regardless, even if they retain Vic, they need to go ahead and get a younger, innovative offensive coordinator, that can separate themselves, because this offense is just real, 2000 and I don't know, 1999, 2000 type of offense. It's boring. Like you said, it's boring, right? And everything doesn't have to be exciting. It just has to work. But it's boring and it's not working. So we need to figure something else out. They need to either hire somebody off the Rams staff or the Cardinals staff or the Chiefs staff, hire Eric Bieniemy, but he won't leave unless he's the head coach. So hire somebody, please.
There's got to be somebody out there. Who's Eric Bieniemy's assistant? You know what I mean? Like there's got to be somebody out there. And I think you're right on. You go to the teams that are doing it well and you bring one of those guys and say, hey, do this. Because if you're the Broncos, you feel like you have the talent to do that, but it's not turning into it's not coming to fruition on Sundays, and that's disappointing. When we come back, we will look around the league, plus we will take a sneak peek into next week's game against the Raiders. What a fun matchup that is going to be at Mile High. All that and more coming up next right here on Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Mike. Back inside Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Michael, presented as always by WinBet, and it is time to go around the league and talk about what stood out to us in Week 5 of the NFL football season. Around the league, brought to you by Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on their most exciting lineup ever. Shop NissanUSA.com. B-Marsh, I'm going to start with this one. How about the Buffalo Bills? What a statement that was, and they're trying to downplay it. But you lose in the AFC Championship game last year. There's all those pictures of Stephon Diggs staying out on the field, watching that celebration. Then you go into Kansas City in Week 5, Sunday Night Football. You light up the Kansas City Chiefs. That defense is concerning if I'm Kansas City moving forward. And not only that, but you make Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs offense look mortal yesterday. I'm really impressed with the Buffalo Bills. They killed me in week 1 because I took them to beat the Steelers, and they laid an egg. But then all of a sudden, they're like, oh, just kidding. We're over it. We're back to being the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I don't know what happened. I was like, yo, is the Steelers that good or is the Bills bad? And then, and flipped them. Oh, no, Steelers is bad, but the Bills are good. So it's kind of confusing. But, I'm going to go with the Chargers.
Yes.
The Chargers, their defense doesn't look that great, but they find a way to get it done. Justin Herbert is looking like an all-pro receiver. I mean, my mess, receiver, an all-pro quarterback. So he has all-pro receivers. But, that offense looks great. And before the Browns game, the Chargers had held every opponent they went to or they played against to their lowest totals of the season. So last week it was obviously a shootout today, but the Chargers look good. They're sitting up top the AFC West right now. So I'm interested to see how this whole thing plays out.
Are you worried about that pick of the Raiders being second in the AFC West?
I'm worried now because now they don't look like it. They look like they're third or fourth. And it's going to be the battle of the third and fourth coming this Sunday with the Broncos. So
well, let's talk about that. Let's get into the sneak peek for this week as we take a look at obviously a huge game coming up for the Broncos at Mile High. It's a 2:25 kickoff on CBS 4 for those of you in the Denver viewing area. And Brandon, 2 teams that started out really hot, 3-0. And the question was it the schedule for the Broncos? And I thought the Raiders were playing with fire in their first 3 games, having to go to overtime in 2 of them, including one against the Miami Dolphins, who turns out they're absolutely terrible. But what do you expect from this game? What will you be looking for from this game coming up on Sunday at Mile High between the Broncos and the Raiders?
Yeah, man. I'm looking for the Broncos to make Derek Carr beat them. Now, Derek Carr obviously is capable. He's thrown for a lot of yards this season, and he has a good arm, right? He's doing well. He has some weapons, but I would still. Would I change up the game plan because actually. Sorry, let me retract that statement because the Raiders are terrible at running the football, right? They're terrible at running the football. Now, obviously, you have to. Vic is great with the schemes and as far as disguising one thing, making it look like one coverage. So, I think because the Raiders shuffled their offensive line, they got rid of Rodney Hudson, Gabe Jackson, Denzel Good is hurt. A lot of those guys are out, man, and they're trying to figure out Leatherwood, right? Where they going to put him at right tackle, now they put him at guard. They don't know where to put this guy. So they could take advantage, especially if they get the Raiders in third and long situations. That pass rush could take advantage of those guys.
Yeah, so you think make the Raiders try and run the football, despite the fact that you just gave up big yards to Najee Harris.
Yeah, because, watching the Raiders, their weak point is the run game.
Yeah.
They have a really good back in Josh Jacobs, but the O-line isn't the same, right? The O-line is not the same. So, and I see a lot of times pressure, those guys are getting to Derek Carr. The Chargers got to Derek Carr. The Bears got to Derek Carr. So get them in the third and long situations, man, and turn those guys loose, turn Vaughn and Malik Reed loose because, everybody's getting to Derek Carr right now.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure it out. They moved their first round pick from tackle to guard because they're trying to figure it out. They don't know anything right now. They're trying to get the offensive line together because that's the weak point of their team. So take advantage of that. They should stuff the run, but obviously get them in the third and long situations. It's over.
You know what concerns me about this game too is Darren Waller, right? And we know that he is Derek Carr's favorite target. We know that the Broncos defense has had trouble. This is a key where, okay, if Ronald Darby's back, then you've got Pat Surtain on Darren Waller. And do you feel good about that? And do you think that's enough for them to try and contain one of the best tight ends in the league?
I think so. Obviously you can't run man every snap. You have to, they're going to run some zone. And, you just got to have your eye on wherever he's at, no matter where he's at. The first game, Derek Carr threw it to Waller, 20 times?
Yeah. He was looking his way.
Yeah, I think they've tried to mix it up since then. But, I think you might have to run man a little more because I'm not – if I'm looking at the matchup on paper and even with watching film, I don't think the Raiders receivers are that great. I'm going to be honest with you. The Broncos could run man. I'm taking the Broncos secondary over the Raiders receivers, minus Darren Waller, obviously, because he's a beast. He's all pro. But, I would, you could man up Henry Ruggs. You could man up Brian Edwards and Renfro. And, you could man up Waller. or you could try to man up Waller. You know what I'm saying? And I think the Broncos' best help will be the pass rush. If they get in Derek Carr's face, and like Joey Bosa said, he does get skittish in the pocket, man. He said that. Look, our coach was saying that when I was there. That was a few years ago. So if they're still saying that, that's the word on the street. It's not just just talk. They're not putting it out in there. He really gets skittish in the pocket. So the best, as far as help would be for Darren Waller would be that pass rush.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if they can do that, and then offensively, they got to figure out something and get something going. I think this could be a get right game for the Broncos. I really think. I don't think they're going to come in and blow out the Raiders, but it could be a get right game for them if they can get some things going offensively and can like you said, kind of control Darren Waller, control that running game, and it's good for them that it's at home because if they, what's up?
Taking the under on this.
You taking the under again? Yeah. I don't blame you there. I think the under's probably in play. I wonder what Vegas is going to put it at. They're probably going to drop that thing real low based on what we've seen from these two offenses. But yeah, I definitely think the under is going to be in play, and it should be a great game. We'll see what happens. Obviously, a really, really big one. If they lose this one, man, they are in a world of hurt. So, hey, that's going to do it for us here on Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Michael. We are, as always, presented to you by the good folks at WynnBET. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today on CBS in Denver. We will talk to you next week. Maybe we'll have something happy to talk about next week. Who knows? We'll see what happens. Broncos Raiders 2:25 kickoff at Mile High and on CBS 4 for those of you in the Denver viewing area. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. We'll talk to you next week.